Hello and good evening to all of my many friends, also to my many enemies. Once again, this is Roosevelt with another episode of Roosevelt Sounds Off. And this is part 2 of my 2016 presidential election trilogy. Yes, I did promise you a trilogy, which means 3 delectable videos on this 2016 presidential election. I was waiting a little bit late until some results came in order to talk about it, but it looks like countrywide Donald Trump is leading over Hillary Clinton, especially like in certain states or major battleground states like North Carolina and Florida, those kind of places. In Ohio, I just found out about Ohio a second ago that Ohio is leading with Donald Trump voters. And I feel that, like I said yesterday, no matter who gets in, whether it's Trump or whether it's Hillary Clinton, that it's going to be, let me get more comfortable, bad no matter who gets in. Because I feel that they're still both one and the same. Because if Donald Trump gets in, I mean, you have all kinds of prejudice and disrespect and everything, stuff that he said about Muslim Americans, stuff that he has said about immigrants, and talking about building a wall. I mean, come on now, instead of, if only thing that he is focused on is just building a wall instead of building bridges, I mean, you know, I think that that's bad, you know, also. And you know, also, one of the big things, can't leave this one out, is how he's made fun of the disabled. You know, there's a video of him making fun of a disabled person, talking about, oh, I don't know, I can't remember. No. But yet this is the kind of person that, you know, somebody would want for president. And I get a feeling that if he is president, I believe that Hillary Clinton could take us into some other kind of war, you know, as far as like war with another country or anything. But I feel that someone like a Donald Trump could take us into a civil war or bring us much more into a race war, because I mean, you have people from the Aryan Nation and people from the Ku Klux Klan who are actually supporting and endorsing Donald Trump. And many of you all don't know that it's about like a week or two ago that there was a church that was burnt down in the state of Mississippi, and right on the rubble it said something about support Trump. Somebody left a sign there saying support Trump after they burnt this church down, because you have a whole lot of like Trump supporters who are in the South and, you know, all over what is known in this country as the so-called, I say so-called, Bible Belt states, because it seems like the Bible Belt supports more of the Republican values. You know what I mean by Republican values? What they say is Republican values is values on family. It's supposed to be anti-gay rights, anti-abortion, you know, those kind of rights. And you know, you had many people and everything, and even certain pastors from the right wing who have supported Donald Trump, including people like Jonathan Falwell. In case you all don't know who that is, that's the son of the late Jerry Falwell. You know, and just right wing, just like all the way around. And like I said yesterday, and I'll continue on saying it, I don't know how come, you know, certain pastors let these people into their churches. I mean, they let Hillary Clinton into a church. She ended up making fun of the black church and making fun of, you know, how black people talk and making fun of the way black people worship. But yet on the other end of the spectrum with Donald Trump, it's like, I mean, some people or some pastors on the right wing have gone as far to call him the anointed of God, man who's going to stand in the gap for such a time as this, and all of this other kind of stuff that, you know, people are saying. And even here in my city, you know, Chicago, Illinois, you have a big voting block of possibly Trump supporters, especially people from certain areas. Like one area in particular could be Beverly and another area could be Mount Greenwood. Why do I say Mount Greenwood? Because in Mount Greenwood, it's also known as Copland, because you have a big influx of Chicago police officers who live in the areas of Beverly and especially Mount Greenwood. So white officers on top of that, very prejudiced, racist type of area. I mean, I say that because the other day, even here in Chicago, even though I haven't got to this story yet, but I might after this circus is all over with. In case, some of y'all missed the news on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon, there was, not teenager, but 25-year-old, his name was Joshua Beal, who was shot and killed by police officers on Saturday. And on Sunday, they had a rally. It was Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, which is the, agency, I guess, that they set up to support the police. And there were a couple of people who were streaming this thing live on Facebook. And when I saw some of the things live on Facebook, with all of the Blue Lives Matter supporters, who were all white, by the way, you could feel the racism in certain things that they were saying. They were yelling out that, get out of our neighborhood and go get a job, a-hole, and, he had a gun, a-hole, he deserved to be killed. And they even got into a chant where they said, vote for Trump, vote for Trump, vote for Trump. So I know that it's a large voting block of Trump supporters, even in my own city in Mount Greenwood. Why? Because Trump represents or wants to represent the values of the so-called American law enforcement officer. Where a law enforcement officer could take your life and nothing will be done about it. That's what he wants. And that's why more police and even police agencies are behind Donald Trump. So I believe it's going to be a sad day in this country tomorrow, whether Hillary Clinton gets in or especially if Donald Trump gets in, because he's somebody who's only for the rich. He's talking about like cutting all kinds of different programs that help people, that help the poor and, feed the hungry and those kind of things. Why? Because Republican Party is set up to protect the rights of rich people basically only. Because the Republican value is that, if you work hard and, everybody can have the so-called, I'm not going to say American dream, I'm going to say so-called American dream. Because to many of us who look the way that we look, we know that this so-called American dream has become the American nightmare. But, they tell you that as long as you work real hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps, there's no need for you to have any kind of government aid or help. You can get every single thing, in life for yourself. So that's how come this Republican Party protects the rights of rich people, and they make certain legislation so rich people will not have to pay their fair share in taxes. And so they can also enforce certain laws and cut certain things, because a little bit of tax that rich people do pay, I guess it goes into the pot along with everybody else's money. And Republicans do not want to put their money into any kind of, their money, should I say, into any kind of government program that's going to go to or help somebody else. That's all it is. So to me, it's all about like division. And I'm just wondering, how can you have a party that only supports 1% of the American population, because only really 1% of the American population is only rich like a Donald Trump is. But us as being like the regular common citizens of this country, we are the 99% of this country, but yet we don't have 99% of the wealth. It's only the 1% that's pulling the strings and holds the 99% of the wealth and the power in this country. So that's what the Republican Party goes to support. And you have a few black Republicans, you know, stupid, ignorant black people who's fed into this thing too. You know, people like I always say, you know, people like Larry Elder, Ward Connolly, Condoleezza Rice, who fed into this lie that as long as you work hard, you can have access to the American dream. That is not always true, because sometimes being black or being Hispanic, you can still work hard, you can get all the good breaks in life, but yet you still get turned around and kicked in your behind. Why? Because this is the kind of country that we live in, and this is the kind of stuff that we are putting up with, and this is the kind of stuff that we are dealing with in this country. Nothing is even and nothing is level. You know, it's only pretty much for the rich to support this so-called 1%. And this is not the way it's supposed to be, but this is what you will get if you get a Donald Trump or any kind of Republican in office, because they're only designed to look out for rich people and rich people only. So I may come back a little bit later on with an update with things, but right now that is where I am going to leave it. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and everybody watch, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you next time on the next video, possibly tomorrow, for my third part of this 3-part series on this 2016 presidential election. Peace and blessings to all.